धन्यवाद Dr. Pratik ji. Good afternoon, everyone. And most respected Director CMDR, Dr. Visva-Bharati sir, and Dr. Pratik ji, and other colleagues who have joined online, the scholars, and ladies and gentlemen. So it's one of its kind. I think this particular initiatives under the aegis of CMDR and ICSSR to connect ourselves, all the academicians, the scholars, the researchers in the fraternity, especially under the umbrella of social sciences, to come together and share the understanding or whatever our experiences have been in a particular field. And that's how I have been really feeling great, in the sense that having an opportunity to interact with my own colleagues and scholars who are the future of our not only the particular discipline of agricultural extension education, but the social science in general. So I have been given an assignment in the sense that, of course, I was free to choose the topic, and as for many of you, I can see that many of my own colleagues and scholars have joined. So I'm really overwhelmed for your enthusiastic participation. I hope I do justice with this 1 hour of interaction with all of you on the particular issues of farmers, producers, companies, and its present position. So, and how we can harness the potential of it, and then how the dynamism is a matter for its sustainable existence. So I'll just like to share my presentation first, and then I'll start the please response if it is visible.
Yes, sir.
I hope it is visible. Only thing is that I have to take it down, I guess. This
it is visible.
Yeah. Okay. Once again, sir, thank you for giving me the opportunity. We are all concerned about that, the farmers, and then how, let me just down it, and how they are performing in terms of their income, in terms of making the agriculture remunerative. And of late, we have been talking about a kind of conglomeration or the aggregation of the farmers. And we have named it over a long period of time. We always try to make a farmers aggregation, and we have named it. And now the recent, the title, the farmers producers companies, has become a kind of a national importance. Not only national importance, even in the global consideration, this has become a very, very important institutional innovation. So time we can say it is a kind of new institutional innovations, because it is every time or every year or every places it has been evolving with its many facets. So during this presentation, what I like to present over here is about the smallholders agricultural challenges and what makes us to look for the farmers producers companies. The farmers aggregation models which have been available, a very short presentation, maybe in a global perspective, and then coming to the Indian perspective. And then we'll try to understand that how these APCs are performed, whether it is the same everywhere or it varies, and what are the factors for their effective functionings, and then how dynamic those organizations are, and whether there is any kind of bearing of those organizations regarding their existence, long-term existence, or the sustainability, how their farmers members perceive about their sustainability, and then factors which influence it. And most importantly, as it is an organization, so now, what about the organizational components or the managerial competencies of those farmers producers companies, which are also having its influence over the sustainability of those companies? And then I'll try to end up suggesting certain models, not only from our studies but also from other studies, also few of the studies, selected studies, so that the future researchers or those who have been engaged or who like to engage in this particular research or in academia regarding the farmers aggregation models and their functioning, that can be of your help. So why we are talking about the smallholders agriculture? Simply because if you look into the international arena or the global literature, then you'll find around 500 million the farm which are smallholders, worldwide out of 570 million. And out of this 500 million, in some literature you will find 475 million also. So out of that, but the huge number of smallholders, the farm or agriculture, the 74% are concentrated in Asia. And especially the China and India is the home of 35% and 24% of the global smallholder farms. So therefore, the country like India, where the smallholder farmers to the tune of more than 86% are tilling the land, they have been facing different challenges, the different concerns for smallholders agriculture. It's not the new thing which I am telling you, but just to refreshing our knowledge, that they have been facing a kind of marginalization. They have been facing imperfect markets for their inputs and products. Maybe there is a difference in the scale in their economies and increased cost of acquiring those resources, then inadequate returns for the produce what they have been producing, the limited access to the institutional credit, inputs, technology, information, and most importantly, the low bargaining power. They are the hand of exploitations when they go for the marketing of their produce, and then they face the other kind of difficulties in terms of the high transportation cost and the storage cost, so on and so forth. There are so many of challenges if we try to gather about the smallholders agriculture. Now, most of the time, when we talk about the smallholders agriculture, then there is a dilemma for the farmers. And it starts with what to produce and where from to get the inputs. And when they say the input, the credit is another issue. So where to get the credit and how to have the technical know-how, recent technologies and extension advisory services. Then after the produce, then another botheration that how to process it or preserve it, then where to sell, and what should be the kind of remunerative price for the produce, so how to sell and what price to sell. So all kind of dilemma, and then the questions which always hover, and it is not stationary, it's again a dynamic, it varies from one produce to another produce. So that actually has amalgamated into the emergence of a collective farming system or the farmers collectives, because now those have been supported by the policy and budget initiatives of the government. Different schemes have been implemented for strengthening the farmers, producers, organizations, ecosystem, and then research and development orientation of late. You will find in the last 1 decade or so, there are a lot of emphasis on the farmers, producers, organizations, and then a lot of researches, a lot of initiatives from the governments. Basically, this, if you look into this kind of farmers aggregation model, then one thing is, visible, that these collective institutions actually are engaged in two types of markets. One is the factor markets. That means all we understand that production related factors, right from your credits, inputs in terms of fertilizers, pesticides, technology, seeds, so on and so forth, even the irrigation or the water. And then the product markets, one that the process of agriculture farming is over and the product is available, the produce is available, then they look for the produce, sale, and where is it to do? whether there is a national market for them, whether there's an international market for them. Not, and most importantly, they are always with a kind of, having access to the local markets, or through the middlemen, and that's how the story happened to be. So this is what the kind of scenario when the small farmers agriculture, what we see worldwide. Sorry, it's okay. And so if we look into a kind of empowerment of the smallholders in this particular scenario, so what have been said in different literature, which we have obtained through research, is that with the limited market access, when there is a struggle and when there is a competition for the smallholders, then they are being suggested for a kind of amalgamation in a kind of the aggregation, which is being named as farmers producers organization, because it is believed if they are aggregated, then they will help in kind of economizing the scale of their production, the inputs and their resources. So it will help for a better resource management. Basically, the idea is that this aggregation will help in efficiently managing the resources, and that will have also a kind of improved access of the marketing of the produce, and then that will also reduce the transaction cost, and this will allow them to remain competitive into the market, because we are in an era when the market has become a kind of open for all of us. In 1995, as we all understand, that the Indian economy and the global economy has gone through the 5 reforms in terms of the globalization, liberalization, devaluation, deregulation of market, and the privatization. So in this kind of, everything is become a competitive. Now, let me tell you here that not about the Indian context, even in the global scenario, if we look into the farmers aggregation models, now everything has been started way back. We have all heard about the cooperatives, is it not? So cooperatives have been a kind of a scenario, and which is, earlier it was state promoted, now also state promoted, and the focus has been always for the cooperatives is the welfare of the members. But the APOs are being visualized as a model that is a kind of beneficial alternative for the in spite of its other considerations. It is a beneficial alternative of the cooperatives. That is one thing, and with the main focus is that smallholders agriculture's commercialization and improved farm income. So there is a, please try to understand that there is a paradigm shift from the cooperatives to farmers producers organization. Now, when I'm saying the paradigm shift, let me also share with you, before I go to this global model, because I think that this is quite interesting for all of us to understand, that the cooperatives, what we are very much aware about, when it was started, it was a kind of revolution. The first institutional revolution happened globally in 18th century. Okay, and the first cooperative, I don't know if anyone of you having an idea, it is quite interesting. It started from the Europe. It is in East Asia, and that is in the way back 1769. Can you imagine that how old that concept is? And then you all know that there is a Rochdale principle in 1844, and that has made a kind of wildfire for evolving the cooperatives all over the places, all over the countries. And with the main aim of that is a voluntary aggregation of the people to make them together with a certain defined goals for the development that can be of different types. Now, this is a kind of scenario, and this happened in a global consideration. Perhaps that is the reason. Now we go for a literature survey, and what we did there, we found that most of the farmers aggregation models still now are being classified as the cooperatives. Now, please mind it that cooperatives, what was evolved in 18th century, the definition of the paradigm has shifted. Even then, in most of the places, the nomenclature remained as cooperative. Then we get a farmers producers organizations, and that is around 29% of the total global, if we look into the farmers collectives. And then there are certain places it is known as groups, about 14%, and then enterprises, so and so forth. So agricultural cooperatives, now when we say the cooperative, then we know that there is agriculture cooperative, and that will come into, I'll also try to tell you that how that has happened in India. And just for your understanding, we all know and we all understand it is more than 100 years, 1904, when we had our initiative in the country for this cooperative. Now, what I was just telling, that there is a paradigm shift, and now those agricultural cooperatives have been visualized as a kind of a vehicle for transformation and then promotion of sustainable and resilient food systems, especially in the Latin American countries, okay, and also the European countries. That's why you'll see that in a country like Brazil, Cuba, and then also in the country like Portugal, there are, their nomenclature is agricultural cooperatives. And these cooperatives are responsible for 50% of agricultural input supply and 40% of the sales in the European Union, even in the European countries. This is the scenario. That's why I told you that factor market, and then that others that produce markets that is being completely controlled by these agricultural cooperatives, even in the European Union. Even in the country, in African countries like Kenya, both the national and the county governments there have been increasing the funding for the producers organization to make them a shift from the bargaining to the processing. So it is not about the marketing of the produce, but the very idea of this new institutional transformation, what we are saying, that can it be helpful for upscaling the entrepreneurship, or can it be helpful for inculcating and establishing the kind of agri-entrepreneurship as well? So this is how we can categorize the farmers aggregation model worldwide. Now, if we quickly look into that kind of these models, how they are being engaged, here I just try to include the India also. If we look into that, left hand, the upper figure. So you can see that country like India, China, Mexico, Kenya, Ethiopia, Nicaragua, South Africa, Vietnam, Uganda, especially the Asian and African, and of course Mexico is there, Latin American countries. So they are those who they are being identified dealing with which kind of commodities, even in India and China, the Asia-specific countries, as I said, that is the home of the smallholders, the global smallholders, that 74%, 30 and 20, the majority, as I said, that one out of 4 small farm is in India. So they are actually, these aggregations of the farmers groups are basically revolving around dealing with the fruits and vegetables, right? And you can see that blue bar, and there you can see that it is basically more of fruits and vegetables, and few are also in the livestock. In the country like Vietnam, it is livestock, and in country like Uganda, African country, it is about the cash crop. Barring these 2 countries, of course, few you can see in Ethiopia also. That is being dealt with the cereals, but otherwise it's the fruits and vegetables which have been dominating the kind of aggregation models in global comparison I am presenting over here. Similarly, if we look into that, that what are the factor market being assessed by the smallholders aggregation model, then we will find that again it is the extension services which have been captured through the IPO. You all know that we are talking about a shift from the production-led extension to market-led extension, farmer-led extension. There is a shift. So that is visible. IPO is also being visualized a kind of vehicle or the cooperative that for the farm advisory services, followed by making an arrangement of that, the credit, that agricultural credit, what is being required for all the smallholders. So this is the basically 2 dominating. Of course, in other cases, other things are also being provided in terms of technical assistance, technology, and transport. But basically, this is being dominated by this. And when we talk about the marketing, then you can see here the country like India, China, they are restricted into the domestic market. Okay. However, the some countries like Mexico, Nicaragua, Uganda, they have even having access to the international market, and different types of services are being provided worldwide. This particular aggregation models, and that is right from your factor market to produce market to credit market. I mean, all kind of this are being provided in terms of a kind of service to the farmers. Now coming to the Indian context from the global, that now by this 10 minutes or 15 minutes interaction what we have, we could understand that India is having a firm standing after China when you talk about that, the smallholders and their agriculture. How can we make that remunerative? You will be just astonished to listen that there are more than 5 billion of the farmers or the population are engaged. And then it is also the this African and Asian agricultural produce. 80% of the produce is coming from the smallholders. Now, when I talk about the cooperatives and how it has evolved over a period of time, when we come to the Indian context, it has never happened in 18th century's beginning, but in the 19th century's beginning. And the Indian cooperative movement, when it was started with a kind of strike. What happened in the pre-independent area during 1890s? What happened? That is a rebellious Maharashtra's farmers movement happened against those local moneylenders. So it started from Maharashtra, and then later on there was a lot of enactment happened, even when the Britishers were ruling us, in terms of the Crop Credit Society Act, 1904, what we remember, and we have passed now that 100 years. Then Cooperative Societies Act, 1912. Then we have a Government Act on 1919 and 1935 for making the aggregations. And then we having a Multi-Unit Cooperative Societies Act, 1942. So these were the happenings even in India during the pre-independent era. And there is a legal backup also. That many of the scholars are there, they must be preparing for their civil service. You must also understand that those articles of our, that constitution, that Article 43 specifically, which is under the directive principles of the state policy, and then Article 14, which gives the right to equality, and then Article 19(1)(c), which is given a right to form the societies or association. These have given the legal backup in our country to make the aggregation or the associations, right? And this journey continues. I am not just going in detail because it will take further time, but just I'm trying to make you understand that it is a beginning of the happenings in our country, even pre-independent era. And then when country became independent, then there is a lot of emphasis on the cooperative, and what we have witnessed in terms of the Green Revolution, White Revolution, and you all know that how the cooperatives like Amul has played a tremendous role to bring the White Revolution in our country. And we can also understand that how government has emphasized for cooperative development with the establishment of NCDC in the era of 1960s, if we go for a kind of era. And then we have marched forward. And only of late, in the beginning of this particular 21st century, when we fulfilled a kind of a journey of 100 years, then there was a task force who was formed by the government on the revival of the cooperative institutions in 2004 under the chairmanship of Professor A. Vaidyanathan. So, and this Vaidyanathan committee actually recommended for the revival of the cooperatives, and then we can find there are other initiatives followed it up after 2004, and then there is a immediate initiatives which you can see parallelly on the recommendation of Y.K. Allah committee in 2002. In 2003, the very existence of farmers producers organization is legalized with an amendment and is a part 11 of the Indian Companies Act 1956. So this is the milestone year for farmers producer organization in our country, 2003 onwards, and then 2013 we get a national policy from the ministry, and also it is being said that farmers producer organization can be registered in any of the act, but when it comes to the farmers producer company, they it has to be registered under the Companies Act, which was amended, and then we made it again a kind of Producer Companies Act under the section of Companies Act in 2013. So this is a kind of happenings which happened over a period of time. Now, before I go to the farmers producers organizations and its happenings in India in a nutshell, let me tell you that the cooperatives and the agricultural cooperatives in a particular, then people will be now thinking that why there is a shift. Yes, there is a shift because there is a lot of problems in terms of that state's influence on the cooperatives, because that agricultural cooperatives are of different types, as you all know. That is agricultural, production cooperatives, which deals with the factors of production. Then agricultural service cooperatives, and if we go for the agricultural service cooperatives, again it is of two types. One is the supply cooperatives, which is concerned about the supply of inputs, mainly the backward linkage mechanisms they establish, and then marketing cooperatives, that is the forward linkage once the production is there. And the National Commission on Agriculture 1976 also has emphasized or recommended the setting up of the farmer service cooperative society. These service cooperative societies have come up in a big way. And another cooperative which is very, very important for our understanding is the credit cooperatives. You must be aware about the primary agricultural credit societies, because farmers are basically required support, you all understand, and government has made a lot of arrangements, of course. And then from the cooperative societies, there is also in a district level, but is the district central cooperative bank, and then in the state level we get the state cooperative banks. That's how these cooperatives have been existing. And thereafter there is a paradigm shift, and this particular era, as I said, from 2003 it was initiated, and then 2013 it took the momentum. So as I was telling, the same thing you can see over here, that the farmers producers organizations, all initiatives started with a kind of amendment in the Companies Act, what we had in 1956, and there is a separate section is made, and then there is a policy guideline came from the government in 2013, and three organizations like SFSC, Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium, that is a registered body, is the main facilitating organization, along with NABARD and NCDC. As I was telling you, the NCDC was established in 1963. And of late, in 2021, government has taken the initiative of establishing 10,000 FPOs. And the very unique thing what happened with this particular scheme, where 6,865 crores have been allotted, and we are reaching to the kind of next 5 years, means almost this year. So this is emphasis was made that one district, one product, what we had, and then making a kind of cluster-based business organization, CBBO, so that not to create new groups, but those groups which are existing in a particular district and dealing with that particular district's product. So they can be, brought together, those SAG, those FIG, under the umbrella of FPO. And in northeastern states, they required 100 members. In or other parts of the country, it is 300 members. That's how, in a nutshell, about this particular scheme. And now, in a present situation, 84% of the FPOs are basically FPCs. That means they have been registered under the Companies Act. Now, and their register is maintained by Register of Companies, not by the Register of Cooperative Societies. But that doesn't mean that FPO cannot be enacted or registered under the Cooperatives Act. They can be also, but to become a kind of a nomenclature, that is the producers' companies, it has to be under the Companies Act. So 15% of the FPOs are still existing under the Cooperatives Act, and 1% also Society Registration Act or India Trust Act. So there are, the number of mechanisms available for farmers producer organization to be enacted, but the most emphasis, as per the policy guideline of 2013, is vouching for registration under the Companies Act, so that the terminology can be very safely used the FPCs, farmers producers companies. Now again we need to understand what's the difference then, FPO and FPC. So we, like our childhood days, we can very well say all FPCs are FPOs, but not all FPOs are FPCs. Because to have the FPC only, not only it has to be enacted under the Companies Act, but also those members have to have an equity contribution. And you know, this 10,000 FPOs to be formed, government is giving a financial support to the for 3 to 5 years to those FPOs who are coming up to the tune of 18 lakhs. And they are also giving a matching equity grant in terms of 2,000 per member. So that it depends on that how large it is, depending on, but then there is a threshold that matching equity grant will be up to the level of, or up to that cost is around 15 lakhs. So the maximum matching equity grant, what is available from the government is 15 lakhs, but then the initial support is given for the 3 to 5 years, that is 18 lakhs. So this is the what scenario is. Now with this, we can very safely say that there is a changing nature of the farmers' collective action, whether it is a cooperative transforming to the beneficial alternative in terms of FPO, and from FPO to FPC, the very emphasis is that not only to give emphasis on the resource management or developing the capacity of the farmers, but giving them a market accessibility. It is a shift from community-oriented policy. Earlier, we have a lot of emphasis on the making the aggregation, not about making aggregation. It is not about the number, but then going for a marketing of the produce, so market-oriented policy. And then from the subsidy orientation to the market orientation. So you can see it is market-led extension, or it is MMM. So, that has been a kind of a mantra for reviving or making the small holders agriculture commercialized and enhancing the income. Then if you look into the growth, many of you are aware about it. As I was telling, it took a kind of a momentum. Initially, it was only 9,000 FPOs formed, okay, between 2003 to 19. But from 20 onwards, last few years, it has been quite a increase, about fourfold increase in terms of the number. And then the highest number of FPOs are formed in 2021. So in a single year, we have 9,000. So what we would have for 16 years, we have in single 1 year, 9,000. And then why FPCs we are talking about? Because it is promoting efficiency of the corporate structure with an alignment of cooperative values. So it is not all about the commercialization and profitability, but also it is also taking care of the welfare of the farm families of the farmers. Now, bit of analysis, again from the secondary data, because Tata Kernel Institute have been maintaining a real-time data on the FPC, so it keeps changing. But what we can see here, as I said, is the story of, the having cooperative, the Maharashtra state. And this state has been a pioneer when you talk about the public-private partnership, when you talk about the farmers producers organization. So as it is understood, even from the figures, it is skewed. And you will find that Maharashtra is the dominating states when we talk about the FPOs, and then the Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Bihar, Odisha. So this is a kind of trend what we are having. And we are having now more than 4,500 FPOs, 4,700 FPOs, 44,700 FPOs, as on date, if we can look into the database. And the problem is that it's not about the number. The problem is that even though we have a number of around 44,500 or 700, but how many of those are functional? That is a real botheration for all of us. How many are those are maintaining or complying the rules and regulations and giving a kind of, every year their return? That is very important. And there, the trends is a little bit of disturbing. And that's the reason, perhaps, that APCs are being thought of under a kind of cross road, in the sense that even though it is having enormous potential, but why it is not coming up as a dynamic, vibrant organization? What are the reasons behind becoming a kind of inactive, especially after 5 years when the government support is being withdrawn. So that is a kind of botheration. Some of the facts and figures, if you look, then it will be really a kind of disturbing that, more than 50% of the FPOs what we have built up is not functioning or not remain functional in the sense that that has been a kind of a problem. Number one. Number two is that who are there as a members. So if we look into the gender disparity, that is also a kind of disturbing in the sense that the FPC leadership has been always being occupied by men dominantly. And if we look into the kind of facts and figures, again, we will find more than 70% are male. And the female presentation, if we look into that, even if it is a 50% threshold level we take, then only 15% of the FPCs are female-led. Okay, and 53% are male-led and 13% are mixed. And among the female-led FPCs, around 3675 maintain all female leadership, and 2767 maintain a kind of a majority of women in their board. So this is how that there is a kind of gender disparity. And if we look into that, the diagrams, again, as I was telling you, why it is disturbing, you see that how many, that light orange color, if you look, how many are lapsed. They have been formed, but they are no more functional. So in a total, around 27,930 FPCs which are formed, now no longer they are functional. And around 4,000 are in the stage of up to 3 years of their existence, and around 7,500 or 400, 3 to 5 years. And after 5 years, when the support mechanism is no longer there, that is around 4,000. And of course, in between, we have lost or stricken off for 1,226 in a very particular. Those are not being available or not existence into the register of the companies. So this is a scenario. And then if we look into a kind of women-led and the men-led, and men-led is outperform the women-led in percentage, because most of the cases men-led, they are becoming non-functional. So this is a kind of a botheration for all of us. If I go for a kind of in a tabular, again, it is borrowed from a very recent literature of Tata Carnegie Institute's website in 2026. And it is categorically mentioned 17% of the promoted APCs are operational after 3 years and 9% after 5 years. So altogether, if we look into that, 17 plus 9, 26% are in operation. And more than 50% of the APCs formed before 2021 are non-compliant or non-functional. So that's the reason that APC is having a tremendous potential, but unfortunately, over a period of time, becoming non-functional. Why is it so? That is a kind of research questions which comes into our mind. It will further make you understand that what happened. And as I said, that if you see the dark maroon color of Indian map, that is the state of Maharashtra. It's a dominating in terms of the number and also the functioning of the cooperative. I'm not doing a state-wise analysis, but it will make you understand that the 2/3 of the total cooperative, that farmers producer companies which are in function is represented by 6 states: Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka. And of course, the eastern Indian states are coming up: West Bengal, Odisha, Bihar. But then the momentum is not that great. Of course, of late, after the 10,000 APOs formation, the government emphasized it, and then everybody is after this formation. As I again say to you that this is the time when we can understand that how far that will be a kind of sustainable. If we look into that, we have done it for the global, and it is for Indian sector also. You will see that they are dealing with the multiple enterprise, of course, but then dominated again 26% the peers are only crop based. That is the cereals, and horticulture based is 11%, and is a more of a mixed kind of a thing. So multiple avenues, around 55% the FPCs who are engaged in our country. So the multiple enterprises, of course, is the need of the hour. But at the same time, our country, we know that it is a grain-centric agrarian economy. And we know the reasons for it also. It's not like that, see, we have a kind of a policies when you talk about a kind of the subsidies, the kind of incentives which you give for the grains, which do not give for the other produce. That may be the reason that farmers have no other options. Being the small holders, they want some kind of insulation, and that's the reason they can't leave grain. They can't leave the crop, the cereals. That is required, but that is at the same time not remunerative. The value addition is always a challenge when you talk about the paddy. So what are the challenges we are facing? Before I go for some kind of empirical study which we have undertaken to exhibit before you. So the challenges is very much now understandable, I think, for all of us, that this particular institutional innovations, which is one of its kind in the sense because it caters the need of commercialized agriculture in the the globalized agrarian scenario. But the problem is that once that support mechanisms are getting withdrawn, these APCs are not remaining as a functional entity. That is one. Second, that the large landholders, even though we are talking about that APCs with a motto of having a kind of economy of scale, but still it is being dominated wherever there is a large landholders, and of course there is a kind of a debate of welfare or the well-being as well as the market competitiveness. Then the gender inequality in the membership, as we have just now witnessed through the data, and then insufficient market linkage and weak cooperation. Today is National Statistics Day, and great PC Mohanabis has brought these statistics. So data are very important. The data-driven agriculture is going to happen. We talked about digitization, digital agriculture. That is a different talking point altogether. But again, why I'm talking about it, because these APCs are being seen as the umbrella. It's the vehicle for having a digital agricultural operations or practices in place. So that's the importance is attached to the APCs. Then why it is not being sustained beyond the the supporting years or beyond the 5 years? So that is a kind of a problem. So this is again a kind of low capital base. What happened to be a kind of another limitations, insufficient external finance, and mostly dependent on the government. Then there is a talent gap. How to handle this particular, because this is a company, is it not? So when it is a company, then you need a skillful people to handle it. Then the operational issues, then governance is weak and inadequate storage is the issue. The processing is the issue. So that is the reason that we are in a scenario in our country that 30% of the FPCs are successfully operating, where 20% are in a struggling, and 50% are, almost in a kind of initial phase. So we cannot say anything about their future because these are in the phase of 1 to 5 years or 1 to 3 years, whatever you can say. And another thing I am telling you, it is ironical that 14% of the FPC is having a paid up capital of only 10 lakh rupees, and 49% having a paid up capital only up to 1 lakh of rupees. So this is with this kind of low capital base. A company is very difficult to survive the way it is being intended to survive or intended to brought a kind of changes. Now I'll take a pause over here. I think that last 45 minutes I am trying to make a kind of a presentation that how it is evolved as a new institutional innovation, right from the cooperatives paradigm shift to the agricultural cooperatives, to your credit cooperatives, to the farmers producer organizations. Even though cooperatives is the largely used nomenclature globally, but of course in our country it is the farmers producer organizations, at how it is being evolved. So since 2003. And then 2013 or 2019, there is a momentum going on. Now, that actually has, made a kind of a scenario that we need to look into empirically through the data that how FPCs are performed across their different growth stages. In this regard, I must acknowledge the work of one of my scholar, Dr. Shreya Anand, who did her study in Visva-Bharati under my guidance. I will largely confined to a kind of analysis what is being done in that particular doctoral research. Of course, another two scholars also working on that. And I hope that if they have joined, they can also, they're listening to me. Shoumesh is there, and he is looking after that, the managerial aspects, because that is very important, that I'll try to bring that how the output of one study, we try to use as the input of the furthering the research in that. And another aspects also being looked into that gender disparity and how it is having its bearing on the performance of the APCs. But as of now, I'll just restrict myself to empirically bringing the data what we have received in the state like Bihar. Now, question is that why is it Bihar? Especially because not only about the researchers' contents about that particular state, but Bihar is a unique state in the sense that it is having a 97% of the landholding, which is the largest in the country, and largest number of smallholders are the home in Bihar, and they cultivate 76% of the agricultural area. And you know what's the average landholding? It is 0.39 hectare. So this is a state where the smallholders agriculture has been always a challenge, especially in a climatic consideration also, because 18% of the total Indian area, flat-front area is in Bihar. So Bihar is one of the, again, 6 major states of late took the momentum of forming the FPCs. And 1731, around APOs which have been formed within a very short span of time, and state government has also have given its emphasis in program like Ajivika, and there are many other programs. So this is how that, a momentum which got this particular state, and a kind of background where it is constrained with the agrarian infrastructure base, which is not optimum, as well as the climatic challenges. Like, as I said, there's a flood prone 18% of the areas. And then the farmers' landholding, which is the one of the lowest in the country, and the maximum number of holdings, 97% in this. So that actually prompted to look into this particular state's, the potential or the kind of happenings in terms of the APC's existence. And it is a bit of contrast like Maharashtra. Because I was talking about Maharashtra, everything happened. Why it is, because it is organically happened. Nobody, see that farmers that, revolt, nobody has insisted, no facilitating organization was there, no SFSC or NABARD was telling farmers to go for it. They have come up of their own. So it is organically, but then in states like Bihar, it is more of a promoted. Okay. So many of the states are promoted. So there is a difference when it comes automatically and when there is a kind of a facilitation or a kind of promotion. And that promotion or the promotional agencies are existing for 5 years. But if it is happening organically or from the inside or from the inner core of the mind of the people that no, we need it. So then it exists perhaps. That is one of the reasons. And that is also a kind of a research one can look in terms of the qualitative research. So in this particular state, in this particular study, covered around 5 districts and, East Champaran, Muzaffarpur, Darbhanga, Purnia, and Katihar. And a kind of, multidimensional approach was taken. Not looking to the farmers, producers, companies, or the organization on a particular perspective that what they are functioning, what they are marketing. We need to go into that. Not only the socio-economical or demographical issues or the factors, but also the organizational factors. That's why it was important to look into how effective that particular organization is, how dynamic those organization is, and how much sustainable it is being perceived by their members. and what have been the success criteria, and how far they are able to solve the problems of their agriculture through this FPO as a kind of vehicle for transformation, and what are the benefits they could derive. Would they achieve the desired outputs? As I was telling with Dr. Jelly sir, that if the process is not correct, the desired output in terms of the income, empowerment, capacity building, bargaining power, commercialization is not going to happen. So we need to be able to, help us to achieve the economic development of the country, because smallholders agriculture cannot be ignored simply because 86%, more than 86% of the farmers are the smallholders. So that was the kind of conceptual model in the mind, selected the 8 FPCs in their different growth phases. 2 FPCs are in the initial phase, 1 to 3 years, another 2 FPCs, 3 to 6 years, another 2 is more than 6 years of functioning, and another 2, they are more than 6 years in existing but no longer functioning when the research was conducted during 2022-2023. So this was a kind of scenario which has prompted a selection of 8 FPCs following a stratified random sampling, you can say. And if we look into the largeness or smallness, that is also a kind of a researcher's issue. In many of the economics, people are emphasizing that what is the equity contribution. If we look into the equity contribution, that FPC 1 and 2, I have made it 1 and 2 is the within 3 years. Then you see the equity contribution is only in a domain of about 3 lakhs, right? Then if it is more than 3 years and 6 years, that means what we say that from the initial or the nascent stage to emerging stage, there we find a kind of equity contribution in terms of 4 to 5 lakhs, 5.5 lakhs. And then if we go for more than 6 years, then it is having a quantum jump, because equity contribution is going to 15 lakhs, 57 lakhs, 50 lakhs, right? And if we look into that, those who have been existing but not functional, even after 6 years of their existence, their equity contribution was around 7 lakhs and 2.2 lakhs. I'll just take a pause. Please tell me if I am audible and you are, seeing it, because I'm just almost last half an hour of my presentation. Is it okay?
Yes,
sir.
Yes, it's going good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So this equity has been a kind of a parameter for the economists, because for any organization it is a matter of having a kind of contribution, because money matters. And that is the reason you will see the government has come up with a planning that 2,000 per farmer with a threshold value of 15 lakhs per farmers producer organization, they are going to give a matching equity grant. I underline matching equity grant. So equity is one of the factors to start these FPCs, which we need to look into. We didn't do that research, but then others, future researchers can look into all these economic factors as well. Then comes that how much the turnover. That is again very important. Now look who are in the nascent stage, the turnover is around 2 lakh to 9 lakh. Those who are in an emerging stage, they are in a turnover around 12 lakh to 20 lakhs. Those who have been there in this, it's a long existence, then it is around 41 lakhs FPC5, you see. And I have, of course, made it in USD because we could publish it as an Annal of Public and Cooperative Economics, 9.5 perhaps the NAAS rating now. So we had to made it from rupees. But please here you see $650,000, which is to the tune of 5.4 crores. That is FPC6, that is very much existing. Now please look, what are the commodities they are dealing with? Initially, it is only the maize, FPC1, that is a grain centric. Then, along with wheat, the makhana, they have taken up and performing a little better, even in the 3 years. Then, they are looking into the makhana, again the cash crop, that is in FPC3. And FPC4, there's a diversity. Even the grain centric, wheat, rice, pulse. FPC5, you come, when they have a standing of more than 6 years, they have tried to make a kind of value addition and entrepreneurship. So when I say that entrepreneurial upscaling, can it be a vehicle? Yes, it can be a vehicle once it passes through that supporting phase and having its existence of its own for at least 1 year. Then we can see that that can be also a kind of a vehicle for entrepreneurial build-up. And then FPC6, if you go, you see the multiple commodities being handled, right from maize, banana, poultry feed, makhana, input, potato, kitchen garden. So they are addressing the national as well as international market. And that is Arannak, Agri Producer Company Limited is doing wonders and having a liaison with every organization as well. I'm not able to go in detail, but this particular understanding will make us understand that why some FPCs are existing and becoming successful. There are many factors, not a single factor. So that's the reason the multidimensional holistic approach and research will help us to understand that where are the missing links. Because when there is a link, there will be missing link which we need to address as a researcher. Now, another two who are lying derelict, you see, they are only dealing either with the potato or the maize. That's the reason, even though they have been existing, but they became inoperative since 2021 and 2022. That is a kind of botheration. So this is a whole sampling exercise of the study, and then everything is coming to our mind is that whether this longevity, capital, and what exactly the factors for sustainability that we are very much looking for. And then we thought of that there has to be certain kind of model for working for us. So can you remember that Carl Lewin's that field theory of group dynamics? What does it Carl Lewin said? It is that according to the theory, that group dynamics is not the performance of the group is not the summation of the attributes of the members. Rather, it is the function of not only the personal attributes, but also the environment, the context they are in. That's the reason I said that we have to look into the institutional dimensions. And that's the reason this particular, the framework, what we worked on it, that not only the socio-demographic factors, but also the organizational factors, that how effective those dimensions, whether that is influencing to the dynamism of the organization, and then both or all three, whether having a bearing on the sustainability. That was a brief analytical framework which we followed initially. Then we started with looking into the effectiveness, and for that there are 5 dimensions we worked out, and the scale was developed. Of course, here we borrowed a scale already developed by Dr. Anirban Mukherjee under the NAAS funded project. So we took it as such, this effectiveness index, and we try to implement after pilot testing and minor modifications. And I just not like to take you in this data in a vivid manner, but trying to give you an understanding that you see that the effectiveness is lying less than 60% when 1 to 3 years or 3 to 6 years, not having a much of difference when you talk about the effective functioning of those FPCs. But gradually over a period of time, it is being able to make them or leveraging themselves as an independent organization. Then there is a possibility of reaching around 75% of the effectiveness based on their functional efficiency, increasing in income, increasing in the farmer share, farmer satisfaction and empowerment. Altogether, that will be able to help us to reach. However, when we talk about the non-functional, then the condition is really very poor. So this is a kind of dominancy of the different dimensions. Here, just I like to draw your kind attention that if you look into the farmer satisfaction as well as the empowerment, these two have been perceived, or the farmers member felt that these are the 2 dimensions which make the FPCs far more effective, and they have a lot of emphasis on these particular 2 dimensions, which this particular diagram shows beyond that tabular data. Then we came to understand about the group dynamics. Again, I am not getting into the detail of those, because time is not permissible for all of us. Otherwise, we will also lose the track. That's the reason I kept it very simple. 10 dimensions. We developed this particular index, and we use that, Shannon entropy for giving the weight. In earlier cases, the weight was given following PCA, principal component analysis, as you all understand. And here you see, when you talk about the dynamism, is there any difference? Absolutely not. If you look here, that this is again hovering around the 70s, even within the initial period. So that means that effectiveness might have a bearing on dynamism, But when we talk about the perceptions, about the dynamism, about the particular companies, it is not very much differed, except that group which is, having a life cycle of more than 6 years. They are reaching about the 75% marks. Whereas we can see that about the half of the, around 50% in case of the non-functional. Again, this diagram shows when we talk about the dynamism, the two dimension which come up, in a double figure contribution is the members' motivation. So the motivation is important to bring a dynamism into the farmers producers companies. And the second is important is the norms of the group, whether the groups is being held up with the rules, the regulations, the norms. That is also very important, because that I said that FPC promote not the welfare mechanisms or welfare or well-being, but also a kind of a commercialization, the corporate culture. So that only comes when we adhere to the norm. And that's the reason why it is required. Otherwise, one day it will come that, from the registry of the farmers producers companies or the companies, they will be not finding their place because they will be non-compliant. So the compliance comes under the norm. So which is again being perceived as one of the important dimensions besides the motivation. Now come to the sustainability. So if the socio-diagram, the demographic factors we have measured, we have analyzed, we have the data in our hand, we have the data on the dimensions about the group effectiveness of the FPCs and the group dynamics. Now, can we have a kind of a relationship? Can we bring it that relationship when we talk about that the sustainability of the farmers producer organization? This particular that part of the study we could publish in Annals of Public and Cooperative Economics is published from Wiley with impact factor of 3.5, and that is a 31-page long paper. If anybody is interested to work in this particular area, it will be very helpful if you can refer that paper. You can furthering this research. I am always a great believer that no research is end in itself. It is always gives a kind of inputs for the future research. So here in the sustainability, you may add up the other dimensions. We have added up only 6 dimensions: the growth, the business planning and outlook, the management and governance, the value and credibility, the brand and promotion, collaboration and innovation. Now, one thing please always keep in your mind, when we are developing an index, intentionally I have given over here this particular table because I believe that many of the scholars are also the participants. See, we always try to have a kind of reliability and validity calculation when we are developing index, because many a time not the convex alpha is enough for us. We have been asked to give us the composite reliability, which can be very well calculated, and then the AVE value, that is average variance extracted, because that will give a validity of those dimensions. And then if we square root the AVE value, and if the dimension is less that that square root value, then we can say those are a valid dimension. In most of the cases, there are valid dimension. If you can see over here, few aberrations will be there, which is permissible for the field research. Otherwise, it is a kind of, this particular index was tested reliable as well as valid from the statistical analysis point of view. Then with this, sorry, it's not moving. Yes, now it's moved. So we tried to calculate those, again, that weight was given following the principal component analysis, and we try to see that what is the perceived sustainability index value of those APCs. And as you can find over here, it crossed 90%, 95% for those who have been existing for long term, because members have absolutely no confusion, no doubt about the sustainability, because it is sustaining, not only sustaining with a turnover of in crores, in 5 crores, in case of the FPC 6, and it's around the 41 lakhs or something like turnover for the FPC 5, whereas in others cases it is less. So over a period of time, it also perception changes, and farmers get involved and believe in that particular existence and particular value of their FPC. Now here, if you see the dimensions, barring that brand and promotion, where there is a little bit of lacuna, others are being perceived very highly. And if you look into the FPC 5 and 6, then you will see the contribution of all these particular six dimensions almost equal, almost equal. So that also reiterate to the facts that more the existence of the FPCs beyond the support period and the independent phase, if they cross, then they will be having every possibility to become a sustainable FPCs. Now, you may very well ask me, then what happened to FPC 7 and 8? Yes, because they could not diversify. They were always hovering around what they started, that maize and potato. And when that potato, as a crop, that every year the farmers don't get a success in their production. So if there is a failure, the PC fails. The maize is equally that this particular crop is, of course, of late it is coming because of its industrial importance. But during 2021 and those years, 5 years before that, it could not sustain. So diversity is the key. So we have to have a diversified, activities, not only in terms of the membership, but also the produce handling and the way that is being surviving. If we put into the radar everything, in a nutshell, what is the take-home message from all of us? If we can see over here, that sustainability is highly perceived dimension, highly intended by the member farmers, because they don't want the fading away of their companies where they are being involved. They never want it. Dynamism also the key. Only they believe that effectiveness should be further enhanced. That's why if you see the green dotted line, that is the effectiveness that is showing, that is towards the centric, that is the value is lessened, which is to be improved further, because that is having a bearing in the dynamics as well as which I'll just show you in next 10 minutes before I wind it up. And then I talk about the sustainability, what is visible, that everybody wants to sustain, be it an organization, be it individual, because smallholders could understand that individually if they struggle, they may not be able to survive in the agriculture for a longer time, because we are already witnessed scenario when the farm youth are no longer interested. So we have to have the umbrella of FPC in existence for everything in place in terms of the digitization of the agriculture, in terms of the climate resilient agriculture, in terms of the promoting the agri entrepreneurship, everything, this umbrella is going to play a key role in time to come. And that is the reason I am talking about this new institutional transformation or the innovation, because every year, every day, every place, with every production, every function, it is evolving. So it is not stationary as an organization. That's why you say it's a new institutional innovation, is it not? Now, if we look into the statistical analysis, I just don't want to make you bored with these figures and facts, because it's available in Journal of Agribusiness in Developing and Emerging Economies, is impact factor 2.5, 8.5. I must appreciate the effort of Dr. Shreya and then perseverance for publishing this research. Again, a 25 pages paper, which will make you understand the comparative scenario of effectiveness, dynamics, and sustainability. And if you look into that, the stratum which you took, the 3 years, 3 to 6 years, more than 6 years, and then more than 6 years non-functional, are significantly differ with each other in terms of the group effectiveness. When you talk about the dynamics, there is no significant difference between that first two strata, that means 3 years existence and 3 to 6 years existence. That means we can safely say that this is the support, mechanism existence in the life cycle for 5 to 6 years. Beyond that, things are a bit different. So we need to ensure that those organizations are existing beyond 6 years, and then they can perform better, because there is a significant difference. This is a significant model also they have come up, especially for the maize procurement that I was talking about, that it is the best FPCs what is being existence in Bihar, is being supported by the Jivika, and they have made an aggregation model. They make a procurement mechanisms where that, and another thing, let me tell you, this is dominated by the women. I forgot to mention about this women dominancy. I'm sorry about it, but if this FPC 5 and 6, ironically, also dominated by the FPO. I'll show you at the end some picture in which you can also see that. So this is basically they are procuring, they are make a facilitation in the procurement, and then they are making a market linkage, a value addition, branding it, and then selling it. This is what the model is all about. And you can see the diversity, what they are doing it, kitchen gardens to banana procurement, to potato, to makhana, and poultry feeds. So this is a kind of success condition. Now, what is the important for the policymaker is that, so what are the variables or the factors that become responsible? I'm not going through an entire analysis, but what we could find from this particular, stepwise regression, that group dynamics, functional efficiency, a dimension of effectiveness, member satisfaction, a dimension of socio-demographic factor, farmers' experience, farming experience, FPC's longevity or the experience, the social participation, farmers' attitude, and annual family income altogether explained around 67% of the variation. And this, adjusted R squared is 0.66, only a dent of 0.01. That itself shows the robustness of this particular model and is well accepted also. Now, if we go for a kind of a indirect influence, the path analysis, then we get another two important domain, that is farmers' attitude and progressiveness, along with the functional efficiency and the empowerment. This is a figure which is the output of the MOs of XPSS. And as I was telling you that the variable 22 and 19, here you can see that is the group dynamics and functional efficiency. That means functional efficiency is the first dimension of effectiveness, and group dynamics as a whole having a role to play when you talk about the sustainability, even because they're having an intermediating, effect on the other variables. And this is the ANN we did. We, of course, a part of machine learning. Somebody may debate that why we should do it, but then, for regression, we have a lot of assumptions of the linear relationship. When you go for ANN, it allows us even for the non-linear relationship, and then it reiterates the finding. And here also we found that group dynamics and functional efficiency and FPC's experience are the very important dimension. Now, please look here. I'm not showing you the entire regression results because we should not lose ourselves in the data, because anyway it is not a research seminar. But what it highlights is that first table is a kind of analysis for group effectiveness, taking the socio-demographic factor as the independent variables. Second table, top right hand, is talking about the group dynamics, taking that socio-demographic as well as the dimension of group effectiveness, if you remember that analytical framework, what we assumed. And then third one is ultimate about the sustainability, which takes care of socio-demographic, the group effectiveness dimensions, as well as the group dynamics. So what is the take-home point for all of us, or the policy variables or the marker variables across the all analysis, is that few variables like group dynamics, farmer satisfaction, functional efficiency, and FPC's experience. So these are the four variables, along with we can add on another two, that is farmers attitude, that farmers progressiveness. So these six variables is all-inclusive variables, sustainable farmers producers companies in place. So this is the take-home point from this particular and then also we have also tried to measure that the managerial efficiencies of those FPCs with a technique which we talk about, that 5D battery. And there also there's managerial competency. This particular the paper we put management development. I'm not getting into the detail because this is another subset of study. But what I just wanted to mention over here, besides the socio-demographic characterization, besides the organic or organizational characterization, we need to also look into the board of directors. That means the governance mechanism behind the FPCs, and that actually being taken care with the 5 dimensions, which talks about the communication, negotiation, strategic decision making, proactive goal setting, leadership and teamwork, and lifelong learning and perseverance. So these are the 5 things we took up, and as it is happened, here we could find that those who are existing more than 6 years, their governance is to the tune of 43% or 38%, not even very, very high level. But this is being categorized is as an expert there, and for the rest, it is a kind of they're in a professional in making, because they could not become the expert, which is obvious because it is not being for a longer period of time. Detail. Now, this is the last segment. Another two I end up came up to make a ecosystem for sustainable farmers producer organization. And what they have emphasized, you see, they have emphasized on government policy. Then government policy is at place. Then infrastructure development for which they are giving the support fund. Then the retailing. Okay, can they handle that total market FPO as a whole? Can there be a retail points in the rural service, warehouse? Then the credit that is also needed, which is financial cooperatives. Then the HRD component, that is the training and capacity building. And then the market. Other models, I just try to give you the very recent one, which is after a decade of research, Dr. as a 8-component ecosystem model. Here, also, of course, Dr. Shreya's work has also contributed in it. So from this particular model, you can see there are 8 things which an FPO ecosystem requiring in existence in full effectiveness, which starts with the innovations, market, policy, infrastructure, services, inputs, HRD, and finance. So all the way you can see that there is a kind of similarity about the NABERS ecosystem, and of late 5 years down the line through the researchers' perspective, which has popped up, is a kind of 8 components, and which are really are important. So can you ensure that? So future researchers may look into a kind of analysis in terms of the innovations, the market reach, the policy, the infrastructure, services, HRD and inputs, and the financial aspects of the FPO. That can be a kind of different introspection about the APC's functioning, which will be given us. From our own research, what we have published, that we try to find out a kind of a solution of the smallholders agriculture, addressing their challenges in terms of making হয়েছে দেখো তো।
Sir,
Oh,
hello.
am I audible now?
Yes, sir,
Am
yes,
I
sir.
audible now?
Yes, sir. Please continue,
I'm
please.
sorry because
It's okay, no problem.
yeah, because it is a bit of weather has gone problem. So that's maybe the reason. So how long you could hear me? No. Uh, anyone whether you hear me about the sustainable ecosystem?
Yes,
Hello, can I?
eight component battery. So we were
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, so after that, okay, that then I just wanted to can move the sustainable ecosystems models which have been given. See, this is the model. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes.
Okay, so okay, so after the to bring this last slide, and somehow because here this is a storm started, so that might be a kind of fluctuating. So, the ecosystem requirements for the FPO sustainability has been vouched by the NABARD. Since the NABARD's, dimensions like market and policies, infrastructure, detailing, service, credit guarantee, HRD, they have emphasized. Then I was telling that, this is a researcher's paradigm. Dr. Mukherjee and others who have worked on this particular aspect have come out with the 8-component ecosystem model. It's very interesting because all these models having its database, and Dr. Shreyas' work also being considered over here. So they talked about the innovations, market, policy, infrastructure, services, inputs, HRD, finance. So this they have now into the the further probing into the each of these particular component and how it is being performed by the that will be of the hour for future researchers also. And then from our own research, we come up that the 6 factors which I was vouching through several analysis, that from effectiveness point of view, it is the functional efficiency and farmer satisfaction. And then I talked about the farmer's progressiveness, even though it's having indirect bearing, but still it is important, and farmer's attitude. And then the longevity or the kind of existence of the APCs in terms of so that has come up as a crucial factor or the marker for the APCs. And from there, we try to find it from one thing. We are talking about digital agriculture. I also told earlier that APC can be the vehicle for digital agriculture. So the technology make it a teamwork, and that is the work which we have done through doctoral research, the kind of validation or the empirism what it brought it, and the long research which was done in different parts of in a project that has brought up this type, which is being recognized by ICAR also, which talk about 4 things. First, the technology support that is required, but is then the infrastructure support, the policy support, and then export orientation. That is the market we talk about. And the 4 components, if we can ensure in the business model of with one product scheme of the government, it will towards the kind of orientation of the product, the profitability and branding of a particular APC in time to come. So that uh, so with this, I just like to conclude that that APCs are the most innovations, institutional innovations, and even though it is a have its farm ground, it has for the world, also in India. So it has to be depending on the growth, and they encourage the APC to diversify activity. Otherwise, what will happen? This is a dealing with product will not able to function or Am I audible? Okay, so that is what that is what I just wanted to say before all of you, that APC is in time to come is going to make a difference. To taking the small holders agriculture forward and bringing the other agricultural, emerging agricultural approaches in place. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, because the weather has gone really bad, and you can see that. I'm perhaps not visible anymore, because it's getting dark over here because of the particular thunderstorm which is happening. So thank you very much for your kind participation and patientful hearing. Thank you.
जी सर, धन्यवाद। थोड़ा लास्ट में थोड़ा नेटवर्क का इश्यू था शायद, इसलिए थोड़ा ठीक से सुनने को नहीं हुआ।
No, what happened that here that weather has become very bad all of a sudden, because as we understand,
जी
this
सर,
point of time there's a lot of thunderstorms and all this thing.
जी सर, किसी के पास अगर कोई प्रश्न हो तो प्रश्न पूछ सकते हैं सर को। यदि कोई प्रश्न पूछना चाहते हैं तो कृपया आप लोग अपना प्रश्न अनम्यूट करके पूछ सकते हैं। सर आपको आपके सभी प्रश्नों का जवाब देंगे। यदि प्रश्न हो तो अनम्यूट करके आप अपना प्रश्न सर के सम्मुख रख सकते हैं। सर कोई प्रश्न नहीं आ रहे, तो आपका
Okay, no problem. So thank you very much. And if any point of time anybody is having any kind of further interest about it, I'm also a kind of learner in the sense, because we could complete only one successful research, another two are going on. Because as I said you that always a output of a research should act as an input for further research. So as we could understand that here the governance issue or the managerial issue at the back end of my presentation I tried to brought in. So that is being looked by this present ongoing research by Mr. Soumya Sacharia. So hopefully that gives a further understanding in time to come. And also another scholar is looking into the gender disparity in APOs and how is it being influencing the performance at different levels. So that is what the researches which are ongoing in this particular aspect. So thank you very much.
जी सर, आपने आज का जो विषय से संबंधित विकास यात्रा की विभिन्न आयामों पर अत्यंत सारगर्भित विचारों को प्रस्तुत किया है, इसलिए इसके लिए हम सब आपके प्रति हार्दिक आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। और हमारे डायरेक्टर सर का पूर्ण नियोजित एक बैठक था, मीटिंग था, तो इसलिए उस मीटिंग में है, तो उनको भी मैं आज इस विशेष ओपन कार्यक्रम के लिए आने के लिए उनको भी मैं धन्यवाद कहता हूं। और इस वेबिनार में देश के विविध जगहों से प्रतिभागी लेने वाले सक्रिय सहभागी सभी के लिए मैं हार्दिक धन्यवाद देता हूं। इसी के साथ CMDR द्वारा वेबिनार में जो भी थे, और अंत में थोड़ा सा टेक्निकली इशू था, शायद मुझे लगता है कुछ लास्ट के विषयों को कुछ छूटा होगा। जो भी प्रश्न हो तो आप लोग हमारा जो CMDR का जो आपके पास जो ईमेल है उस पर अपना प्रश्न रख सकते हैं। हम प्रयास करेंगे कि जो भी प्रश्न है वो सर से हम बात करके सभी प्रश्नों का जवाब देने के लिए हम प्रयास करेंगे। और सभी को एक बार फिर से मैं धन्यवाद कहता हूं। सभी को धन्यवाद। नमस्ते।
Thank you everyone. Have a great time and do well in your. Thank you.
थैंक यू सर। आज का सेशन बहुत इंफॉर्मेटिव था। थैंक यू।
काफी लोग इसमें निकल गए हैं। डॉक्टर सौविक, रियली आई एंजॉयड द almost 5:25 I was there, up to 5:25 I was there. Really, it was very informative.
Yeah.
And as we have already mentioned, Souvik left. क्या है? कोई बात नहीं. Yes, Dr. Souvik is there. We'll be keeping this entire recording in our YouTube channel, CMDR YouTube channel. So it is gaining popularity like anything because people are responding to our videos. I hope people will be getting the benefits of it. As you mentioned, especially those who are preparing for various competitive examinations, it is going to be one of the best resource material, that what we can say. And similarly, tomorrow also we have one more lecture by a professor of IIT Dharwad. It is basically on Indian economic thought. I'm sure all of you will join and get the benefits of that also. It is going to be again, the professor is a product of IIT Kanpur and working as professor of economics in IIT Dharwad. And really, it is going to be very interesting discussion on the core issues of economics tomorrow. Again, time is same, 4:30 onwards. It's going to be very elaborative discussion. And I thank once again Dr. SOUVIK Ghosh, who is a role model for all the agricultural extension professionals throughout the country in different capacities. He has worked in ICR, now in Visva-Bharati, and especially the students really wait for his inputs in various things. And he is one of the man behind the Indian Journal of Extension Education to enter into Q2 also by rigorous review of articles and improvement of the articles, contributing in many ways. So really, sir, Dr. SOUVIK, we are proud of you, and I am very fortunate that
Thank you, sir, for
we
your
have been working
words.
since 1996, and till now we have that bonding with us, and we will continue with this. Given an opportunity, we will come together on various platforms again and again to learn from each other. Okay, thank you, and hope to meet you all again tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll meet again at 4:30. Thank you one and all.